I have a timely resource for a very specific group of you. If you remember listening to episode 51, How to Use Your School Counseling Skills in Private Practice, you'll remember my friend and former colleague, Lorraine Holman. Lorraine set out to start her own private practice and now wants to teach you why you should and how to open your own viable private practice as a licensed professional counselor. Join Lorraine at a live 2-day virtual private practice workshop for school counselors. This 4.5-hour training will cover LPC licensure steps, private practice documentation essentials, developing your niche and ideal client, maximizing your profit, marketing for beginners, and essential mindset shifts from school counseling to private practice. You'll walk away from this workshop with the tools and confidence that you need to launch your private practice as a full-time or part-time option. Register today for this paid workshop. Space is limited to 15 school counselors and it costs $259. I'm a huge fan of Lorraine and the work that she's doing as an LPC supervisor and a former high school counseling department head. Head back to episode 51 to hear more about her story, but more importantly, if you have a tug to learn more about the practicalities of moving into private practice, I want you to head to counselorclick.com/private practice to learn more and sign up. That's counselorclick.com/private practice, and I hope you'll get to learn from Lorraine at the live workshops on June 7th and June 15th. Hey, I'm Lauren. I'm your host of High School Counseling Conversations, and welcome to episode 127. 8th graders are probably freaking out right now as they're finishing their time as the big fish in the pond and about to be tiny minnows in the big high school pond pretty soon. I know I messed up that illustration, but you know what I mean. They were the most important ones, the big man on campus when they're in middle school, and now they're about to be a tiny little thing in a big setting when they get to high school. I personally remember feeling panicked moving from 8th grade to 9th grade. I came from a tiny school, a tiny private school, where I had been with almost the same 35 kids from kindergarten all the way till 8th grade. And I was moving to a huge public 6A high school where I would soon graduate with over 650 students in my senior class. I had never opened a locker before. I needed a map to get around the school. It was absolutely terrifying. I missed the one day that they had over the summer for orientation because I was out of town, so I showed up on the first day like a deer in the headlights. It also didn't help that I was a tiny 4'9" and I turned 14 a week into the school year. Like nothing about this was going in my favor. So what does the transition from 8th to 9th grade look like for your incoming 9th graders? Are your future freshmen as terrified about high school as I was? I got a DM from a follower and a listener named Melanie asking for ideas for transitioning 8th graders into 9th grade, and I thought this would be a great idea for a podcast episode. So here's your reminder to always reach out with your questions. You never know when they'll get answered in a complete podcast episode. I thought we could talk this week about some practical ideas that you as a high school counselor could think about implementing to make that transition smooth for your 8th graders who are coming into 9th grade. Let's get started. You got into this profession to make a difference in your students' lives, but you're spread thin by all of the things that keep getting added to your to-do list. I can't create more hours in the day, but I can invite you into my Counselor Click where you'll finally catch your breath. Come with me as we unpack creative ideas and effective strategies that'll help you be the counselor who leaves a lifelong impact on your students. I'm Lauren Tingle, your high school counseling hype girl, here to help you energize your school counseling program and remind you of how much you love your job. So I don't know if you already have this set up or not, but what if you did a tour from the middle school into the high school? I just think, wow, that would have really alleviated some stress for me had I been able to walk around the school, look at a map, kind of figure out where the freshman classes were if there's like a freshman academy. Now, you might not have the manpower or even the willpower to get all of your 8th graders up into the high school to give them a tour. And maybe you have too many feeder schools to do that from. But if you just had like one middle school coming into one high school, I could see that being a lot more feasible. Now, that would probably just take a lot of coordinating, a lot of planning, getting all the field trip stuff ready, renting buses. But if this is going to be your focus and you really find it important to get your middle school students into your building during the school day, this could be a real possibility for you to put on the calendar. And maybe you don't have time to do it now at the end of the year, but it's something to think about for next year. But also remember, tours of the school don't have to be during the school day. So the school that I came from, we were called the Generals, and we had a Future Generals Insight Night is what it was called. No fun way to simplify that. It was FGIN. And funny enough, just for some reason, that just got abbreviated to FIGIN. We called it FIGIN, Future Generals Insight Night. So we would set up this night to invite all 8th graders from all over the county or private schools or wherever they were coming from who were interested in coming to our school for 9th grade. It really gave them kind of like an open house, especially even before they were making the decision to come to our school. This may feel like a lot of work. Yeah, it was, but there were a lot of people involved. This was not just the counselor's role to do this. When we had this set up and we had these 8th graders coming into our building, we inevitably had less questions around schedules, picking classes, getting involved in clubs, trying out for sports, general registration, and then career centers and fine arts and foreign languages. When we would open up our doors and let all of them come in at once, they could get all of their questions answered in one place by all of the people who had the answers to them. And that was not just us as the counselors. So this could be something to put on your calendar and try out. Again, a warning, it does involve a lot of people in your building to make this happen. So if you have a 9th grade administrator or, someone who's an assistant to your freshman academy who does a lot of this coordinating, they're going to be main people in making this big endeavor happen. But it's also very student-led too. So having students represent clubs and sports, having all the counselors there to answer schedule questions, maybe your clerk there to have the papers to register or show them how to do that on the computer. All of these people come together to make this work. Okay, after tours, what if you could do an in-person introduction? So if those students are already coming to you and they're going to be on your campus, you're probably going to be sharing in that responsibility of hosting this day. So can you go to them? Are they going to be moving through the building in like a round robin style where you can have your own session and you can be there introducing yourself? Or if your whole team of counselors is splitting by alphabet, they're probably going to need to meet or see the faces of lots of counselors. So if there's a way that you could incorporate a counselor station here if they're coming into your building. Or if you are just going to the middle school to maybe help with registration or something, can your face be a friendly face that meets them and just says, hey, I am so-and-so. I'm going to be your counselor. I'm going to be one of the counselors when you come to our high school. Just so that they have that touch point. They don't have to know you super deeply. You're probably not going to know them and know their names. But just that recognizing of a familiar face is going to be huge when they step on an unfamiliar campus as they move to 9th grade. Something I think would be neat is if you had a current 9th grade panel. So your 9th graders who are finishing up, they've lived one full year in the high school setting, and they're about to move on to 10th grade. What advice can they give to incoming 9th graders? Because it is fresh in their minds. They remember the things that they were super nervous about, and they know the things that they are more confident about now that they've had 1 year in the high school setting. So can you bring a panel of 9th graders to the middle schools that are feeding into your high school? Or if you are having your incoming 8th graders at your school, whether it's during the day or in the evening, could you host a panel at this welcome night or welcome day of 9th graders? Now, I'll get to this in a few minutes about how we're going to ask them questions, but offering that space for those 8th graders to ask questions, interact with 9th graders who have just been there would alleviate a lot of anxiety as well, I think. They can see somebody has gone before them, somebody has survived, and somebody else has made that transition just before they did. I think seeing those students and having them in their mind, maybe even some students who had come from their particular middle school to say, yes, these were the things that were similar. These were the things that were different. This is what I didn't expect. This is what I've overcome. Just giving them some prompts to be able to share that. You can either have the 8th graders ask questions ahead of time, or you can give those current 9th graders some prompts to be sharing from up front. I think if you're going to have a panel, you're going to want to be aware of the inclusivity that you're going to want to present from the stage to make all of the students who are coming in feel welcome in your school. So represent all different types of students. So whether that's what they look like, what they sound like, where they're from, what neighborhoods they live in, what they're involved with, whether that's sports, clubs, the academics that they are choosing to follow, whether that's a career center or a fine arts center or a particular foreign language. Like, give a broad array of opportunities and pathways from up front that an 8th grader could really see themselves in the shoes of whoever is on stage. You nailed your interview, secured your dream job. What the heck do you do next? How do you know where to go from here? Imagine reducing your overwhelm with a guide that takes you through the step-by-step process of what needs to happen after you get the job. You don't deserve to waste your energy spinning your wheels every different direction. You've got other things to get to. Get the support you need to start your new role with confidence and clarity. Introducing the High School Counselor Kickstart course. This 8-episode private podcast will help you navigate the early years of your high school counseling career with confidence. In addition to the exclusive podcast episodes, you'll get episode transcripts, a workbook, a PD certificate, and 2 incredible bonuses that you don't want to miss: a high school counseling curriculum map and a sample needs assessment. Consider this your comprehensive survival kit for your beginning years as a high school counselor. Join us inside the High School Counselor Kickstart course by going to counselorclick.com/new-counselor today. Another really simple way to ease the minds of these 8th graders transitioning into 9th grade is to use a presentation. Use the slides that I already have in my TPT store, and you'll put that out to your 8th graders coming into 9th grade. So you could do this while they're in 8th grade already, or you could just wait until they're in 9th grade. Nothing says that you have to be the one to transition them from 8th to 9th grade, especially if you have a lot going on just to move all of your students on your current caseload up to the next grade level. I kind of feel like it's not really your responsibility to be pursuing these 8th graders before they're your actual students, because let's be honest, you might put a lot of work into that, and then there are a lot of students who don't come to your school. So I am not against you waiting until they're in 9th grade to help ease that transition into high school. So you could use these transition to 9th grade slides, and you could 1, teach it yourself, or 2, you could record a video and then share it out to your students. So I'm talking, you could be a live person in front of a classroom, going through these slides, answering questions, explaining what 9th grade is like to them in person. This would be a great way for you to ease into classroom lessons and to work on maximizing your reach far and wide for your 9th grade students. If you are wondering how in the world you can do that or how to get into classrooms at all to begin with, I'm going to link episode 66 of this podcast in the show notes, where you can go and listen about how to maximize your reach and how to get on teachers' good sides to get in the classroom and do those lessons. If you feel like you don't have the time or the energy to get those on the calendar and be live in front of all of those 9th grade students, I get it. The beginning of the year is absolutely insane, and you might have a huge caseload. Another option would be to do a screen record, like in Canva or on PowerPoint. Put your face on a camera, record yourself doing this presentation, and then share it out. You could share it out in the Google Classroom. You could share it with advisory teachers to show in the classroom, or you could email it to your students. There are a lot of different ways that you could get this information out to them. And, if you do it this way, maybe you're going to have a teacher who does not show it in their classroom. Or maybe you're going to have a student who doesn't check their email and they never see it. Or they never log into Google Classroom and they don't even know that there's something there waiting for them. But I will say the students who want the help are going to find it. They're going to take advantage of what you're putting out there. And as a high school counselor, this is a theme all the way until graduation. The exact same thing happens with scholarships. They act like they want the help, and then they never come pursue the help, or they never take advantage of the resources that you're putting in front of them. So same mentality, create the stuff that would be helpful for the students, and the ones who need it will take advantage of it. Instead of doing an entire presentation, if you want to go even simpler than that, you could just record a video of you introducing yourself to those current 8th grade students just as a little welcome. Or if you have a whole team of counselors, record quick little videos, put them together, mash them up, and send them to those students who are coming in. Or as soon as you have those 9th graders and you're creating a Google Classroom for them, upload it into there. I love using videos as introductions because there are so many more students in your building than there are counselors, and it is a easy way to multiply yourself and to multiply your time so that you can go do the other things that you inevitably have to do on your to-do list. Another thing I thought of that you could do would just be send a mass email. Once you have those 9th graders in your system, say, hey, reply to this email with your questions about high school. And, you could be getting a lot of replied emails. So if I were you, I would preemptively create a rule in your Gmail or your Outlook that sends all the responses to those emails to one folder. Then you could take all those questions and you could put those in a custom presentation for your incoming ninth graders and answer the questions that they want to know the answers to. You could physically respond to all of those emails, of course, but you're probably going to see a lot of the same questions come up over and over again. So like I said, you could do a regular presentation, or you could record a set of videos to respond to those. Maybe you record quick little videos and you put them on a YouTube playlist, and then you send out that YouTube playlist because you could always add to it if they have that link. You could use these questions that students respond to and set up that student panel that I mentioned before. So this is where you could get questions that they want to hear the answers to and have current students respond to those. If you're not into receiving a lot of email responses, you could always set up a Google Voice number and you could get text messages. I kind of think that this one would be a little harder to keep organized. I like the email because it's in one folder in one place and I don't have to worry about seeing those on my phone or collecting them and trying to put them back on my computer where I would like to organize them. So I'm more of an email girly, but maybe you'd create a Google Voice number and that would work for you too. Lastly, maybe once you have these ninth graders in your building, it's no longer just the grade level above them that you want them to hear from. Maybe you want them to hear from seniors a couple of years down the road who have lots of advice for ninth graders. I know I've done a bulletin board before where I have advice from upperclassmen to underclassmen. And honestly, y'all, they are a wealth of information. By the time they get to senior year, they're really pensive and reflective. They're ready to get out the door. But they also recognize they have a lot of life wisdom to offer to ninth grade students. And so, yes, you could put up a bulletin board from your seniors to your freshmen, but you could also get those seniors to represent up on stage again and do a panel for those ninth graders. There's so much wisdom to be had from peers where, parents say, oh, they don't listen to me. Can you talk to them as a high school counselor? You also know that you're just another adult. They might not listen to you at first, but they're going to listen to the influence of their peers. And so having a senior student panel would be really impactful for your ninth graders. So I know that was a lot of ideas to get your brain thinking about the 8th grade transition to ninth grade. I would love if you would send me a DM and let me know which of these was inspiring to you. Which of these are you going to hopefully implement into your high school counseling program to acclimate your ninth graders into high school? I'd love to hear about your journey as to what that's going to look like in your school. So send me a DM over on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to today's episode of High School Counseling Conversations. All the links I talked about today can be found in the show notes and also at counselorclick.com/podcast. Be sure to hit follow wherever you listen to your podcast so that you never miss a new episode. Connect with me over on Instagram. Feel free to send me a DM at counselorclick. That's CLIQUE. I'll see you next week.